Good evening, Hunslet and Riverside Ward. My name is Councillor Paul Ray, one of the three councillors covering Hunslet, Eastern Hill, Leeds Riverside and parts of the city centre. And welcome to this fortnight's Ask Your Councillor, your chance to ask me any questions you'd like to ask me about your local communities, the work we do and what's going on in the city. As normal, I'll go through some quick local updates of note, a quick overview of where we are in terms of the pandemic, and then it's completely open to you as residents to literally ask me whatever you want to ask me. This is your time with me to ask your questions away. So just to start with a kind of quick update where we are with the local lockdown, restrictions and pandemic. This was just sent out to Leeds residents about an hour ago via the council's citywide newsletter. The current 7-day average infection rate is 367.6 per 100,000 residents, which is pretty much a doubling since last week, which is just showing the virus is spreading quite substantially. And the positive test rate is now at 20.7. Now, local restrictions were imposed over a week and a half ago on Leeds. And again, I've had many emails and Facebooks and conversations with people that are obviously finding it an incredible, stressful time. The unknown at the moment is what's going to happen with the government's leaked standardization of the local restriction system. Effectively, it'll be a RAG system, red, amber and green. We don't know when that's going to happen, though the rumours are in the press that it will be Monday. And leaders of the council and all the major northern councils are obviously wanting to get information from the government as soon as possible. I think realistically speaking, Leeds will certainly be an amber, which is pretty much where we are now, based on what the leaks have said is potentially going to happen. But we'll have to wait for the government decision as to where we end up, whether we end up in the tighter restrictions, the red restrictions, which would see some much more substantial curtailment of socialising within the city. There are outbreaks pretty much across the city. Obviously, there is quite a lot of emphasis on younger people. Certainly, we have a large student population here in Hunslet and Riverside Ward, particularly around the Riverside. But to be fair, this is a widespread pattern of infection now, and I appreciate it's obviously causing people a lot of alarm and stress, and there will probably be questions on this as we start to go through this. In terms of some other local updates, to be fair, not much has really happened in the last week in the ward. 2 weeks, should I say. Some probably notable things to mention. The Bile Bean sign in Hunslet Car has been restored to its former glory. It's bright, to put it politely. You can't miss it for a mile. And we are now in talks about how we use the high definition photos that were taken of the faded sign to put up a bit of a historical kind of recap of what that is. Again, just to kind of give some updates, I'm quite happy to say in terms of some of the licensing applications on Dewsbury Road in Beeston Hill and Hunslet Moor area, Winston's has retracted its application, and the Jet petrol station has agreed to our request as councillors to change the request for a 24/7 alcohol licence to 9 a.m. to midnight, 7 days a week, which will bring it in line with some of the local restaurants, which I know will please many local residents. Other than that, it has been a relatively quiet couple of weeks. What I will do, though, is I go through this conversation and start to take your questions. I will put into the comments section a link to my news blog, where you'll be able to get some kind of more detailed updates. I mean, there's been a lot going on, to be fair, probably too much to put into a very, very quick summary. The only thing I will just mention, and this predominantly affects residents in Hunslet more, is obviously we have had quite a lot of travellers encampments. Now, as councillors, we want this to be an open and welcoming community, but where these unauthorised encampments do happen, we appreciate it causes a lot of concern. So the encampment on Moor Road, LS11 near Hunslet Moor, that will be going before the courts for an eviction order on the 16th. and the encampment on Grove Road in Hunslet, just off of Church Street, will be going for an eviction order on the 19th of October. The Tulip Street retail park, the field next to it, that was vacated and secured yesterday. In terms of future security enhancements, we've already put some additional security enhancements on Grove Road, and I'm now asking Parks and Countries officers to give me a quote for a height barrier for the gate off Grove Road to the playground. And in terms of Moor Road next to Hunslet Moor, we have already authorised a £10,000 investment for a height barrier, but we are unfortunately in a long protracted legal process to get that done, and we are working as hard as we can to get that done for residents as soon as possible. Other than that, I will now start opening up to questions. Please ask me whatever you want to ask me. This is your time, and you've got 25 minutes to quiz and grill me as much as you want. So are pubs in Hunslet going to close, Chris? The honest answer is we don't know. We have a rough idea of what the government's traffic light system, the red, the amber, and the green is roughly going to look like. So the green, if you get a green indicator, it will be the national restrictions as they are now. If you get an amber indicator, you will probably have something along the lines of what's been imposed in Leeds at the moment, with maybe some alterations, because there are different models of what a local restrictions, lockdown, whatever you want to call it, look at like across England. And if we are given a red indicator, then we are probably looking at enhanced restrictions, and it has been heavily trailed. That could include the closing down of hospitality. Now, the Chancellor did announce today some form of enhanced, I say enhanced, it's actually a lot less money, but basically funds up to 67% of an employee's wage if they work for a business that has to close due to government requirements under this new regime. A lot less supportive than the furlough scheme, should I say, but we will have to see where we've come out with. They haven't told us yet, unless they literally have announced it while I've been speaking. Our civic leaders here in Leeds, as well as the other northern leaders, have been trying their best to get an answer, but we just generally do not know. Why aren't you wearing a mask? I am in my house at the moment. There are a couple of photos of me going about the ward in the last couple of days with a mask on. I do tend to wear a mask when I'm out and about in the ward, even though it's not a requirement. One, because people stop me and ask me stuff, and two, I've had a cold in the last week, which hasn't helped, and I don't particularly want to sneeze on anyone. Sneezing on people at the best time is not probably the best idea. Holbeck isn't my area, but I'd need a bit more information to kind of give you an idea of what's going on. Obviously, I do hear things, but Holbeck's not my area, so if you could be a bit more explicit, that would be useful. Why do we have so many travellers sitting on Leeds at various locations? I think there's two things here. There's a historical link, and actually there's pretty much a situational link at the moment. So historically, we're next to a motorway. There's been a long tradition of the travellers community in this part of Leeds. And that is what it is historical and cultural links. I think in terms of the here and the now, two things. First of all, the restrictions to international travel has had quite an impact. A lot of the travellers community who do travel would work in Europe over the summer. That hasn't happened, or they would work in other parts of the country in the construction and building trade mainly. That hasn't happened because of local restrictions. And additionally, as a council, we've been starting to restrict access to a lot of the green sites we have across the city, including here in South Leeds. And indeed, that limits the options that those that are travelling have when they say they don't want to take up one of the negotiated travel stopping sites, or when a negotiated site is already full. It is something we're aware of. It's something to a certain extent we're making slightly worse by securing more public sites, but there's a necessity to do that because the cost to the public purse is substantial, and it's also a loss of community amenity. But we are working with officers to try and negotiate more short-stay negotiated sites. And it's next week that the Inner South Community Committee, which is the 3 Inner South wards, Middleton Park, Beeston, Holbeck and Hunslet and Riverside are having a meeting where the travel service and Leeds Gate, who represents the travellers community, are going to have a sit down and talk about trying to get a way forward. What's happening to the Sun Pub? I have sent a specific request to planning to see what's going on with this. It's not owned by the council. There are interested parties in acquiring land. I do know the care home next door is quite interested in potentially purchasing that land. But the honest answer is I don't know since the last planning application for it. So I am trying to find out. It is an absolute eyesore at that end of Church Street. And it would be nice to get it cleaned up and get done. It gets broken into constantly. And it's not great. I'm sorry, Harry, if you think I talk about travel and second-class citizens. They're not. We have a very large established travellers community here in South Leeds already. Most travellers actually don't travel these days. They are either live on permanent sites or they live in normal residential houses, and actually are a beautiful part of our wider community. And actually, I know quite a few who come out and do litter picks and do a whole range of great stuff like citizens across the spectrum. When we're talking about North Rice encampments, we're talking about a very, very small number of people. And part of the problem has been created by us as a council. We have to be honest with that. There's not enough temporary sites, and that's something we as a council have to take some responsibility over and work to resolve. And actually, most unauthorized encampments, actually, the travellers who go there are actually really great. They take care of the site. They're really respectful. But we always, as in any community, I would say this about any community, there's always a very, very small number of people that do cause a disturbance. And actually, my main concern is that actually we lower local tensions, because actually for the established travellers community that live in this ward, it's their culture and background, and it's not great to have people raising tensions over this thing. For the majority of the travelling community who do travel and follow all the rules and are incredibly respectful, it gives them a bad name. And actually, it's about making sure that actually we minimise the impact on all the communities. I want South Leeds to be as welcoming to the travel community as it has always been, well before I even lived in these communities. And we should be proud of our multicultural heritage. But like with any community, those very small number of people that cause additional cost and problems to the wider communities, we do need to address those. It's not about them being second-class citizens in the slightest. It's about dealing with the specific problems to make sure our really diverse community here in this ward, which I'm very proud of, gets along and we minimise any inter-community tensions. But I apologise if you think we're trying to say this, not in the slightest. I've had a lot of conversations with travel services and with Leeds Gate, and I'm really keen that we actually get rid of the tensions caused by these unauthorised encampments, because it's not fair on either community. I haven't heard. I do know the back open. I've purchased a couple of chili plants there myself from Hunslet Riverside. I think it's great that actual flower shop's there. It saves me having to go into town. I haven't heard anything else. I did put a message on their Facebook to say if they do have any concerns on considerations, then please do get in contact with me, and I'm more than happy to chat with them. But other than that, as far as I know, the backup and working. Sarah, literally, I don't know. Again, the government sort of leaked what they want to do around the hospitality sector. There's been a lot of focus on pubs and clubs in particular, because they've been particularly hit by the 10 p.m. curfew. But literally, we don't know the details because the government hasn't told anyone. So until we actually know what's going on, I can't tell you myself. But I can be pretty sure as soon as we know, we will get communicating. We will communicate to the wider city, because if they do impose things on Monday, the timescale to let people know is very minimum. And frankly, it's not on that the government doesn't consult with northern leaders. Okay, I've got a really long one there. Let me read this one. So, Scott, is this the Moor Road? This is the Belle Isle Moor Road, right? So, getting across the science route like many times I have. Is this, Scott, just so you can confirm this, is this the LS10 Moor Road? Because I have two. I just want to make sure I give you a proper answer about the right Moor Road. So if you can just confirm that for me, and I'll come back to that one. Regarding infection rates, I don't know specifically for Belle Isle because it's not my ward, but what I can do is find out and let you know. Certainly in Hunslet and Riverside, we're above the 200 per 100,000, and particularly where we've got a large number of students, we're much, much higher than that. But you need to give me a very specific, I need to get you an answer from your local councillor, so I'll get that from Kim, Judith and Paul, and I'll post a message to you for that one. So, Dylan, the road at the back of Ebor Terrace. So, there is a complexity with this, that it's actually owned by multiple people. There's a little sliver that is owned by us as Leeds City Council, which I have asked highways engineers to go and look at to try and basically deal with the tarmacking issue there, because it's not great. But that sliver of land basically goes just before where the wall ends for the stairs across the Rainbow Bridge. Then the rest of that is actually owned by the individual property owners on Ebor Terrace. Now, the real question has to be around actually what happens then, because I have had a request from a resident to see if we can re-tarmac that because it's really unstable. I personally think it should be brought into highways adoption. Obviously, it's a highway to nowhere, so from the council's perspective, from the highways department, there's a resistance to do that. I am happy to maybe organise a meeting between residents of Ebor Terrace and the highways officers and us as councillors to maybe discuss that, what we do about that, because if we own a sliver of the land and we own another bit to the side of it, because we own the bit going to the stairs, we own that sliver of land next to the stairs and the embankment, and there's just this no man's land in the middle. Something needs to be rectified because it's messed up. So if you want to bob me a direct message, I'm happy to maybe discuss about setting up a meeting between residents and the highways officer, and then we can maybe discuss how we take that forward and what solutions are on offer. But the vast majority of that road behind Ebor Terrace isn't owned by the council. It's actually owned by the individual property owners, and that's the problem. Karen, so the reason why we don't do skips in general is because actually the people that the skips are designed for tend not to get to use them because everybody else puts their stuff in it when they know there's a skip. So that's a particular reason. It costs about £200 per skip and then about £100 per tonnage. And actually they end up just being problematic. In fairness, again, most of the travellers that do come to some of these unauthorised encampments actually do keep their rubbish together, and it is collected pretty much daily by the Clean the Neighbourhoods team or Parks and Country if it's on parks land. So skips would actually be problematic and probably cause more problems because actually residents that live in the area would probably put stuff in there. And actually what tends to happen more than often than not, it gets around as a skip and private waste collectors that aren't registered tend to dump there instead. So it would actually cause a bit of a bigger problem. Our council's working with Bill Gates to get the code to residents as part of this new world order. Not quite sure what Bill Gates' new world order is, if I'm completely honest. I do hear some interesting theories about things a lot of the time, so I can't really comment on that, though I do know a few councillors have actually put themselves forward for the vaccine trials in general when they come up. The junction with Balbine. So let me go back to your original question because I know where I am now, where we are. There we go. So crossing. So we are looking at on the Moor Road bit between where you cross Moor Road in front of the doctor's surgery and the Hunslet Car Club. There is a traffic survey being done by the end of November because I've asked them to look at a crossing. If you look at that junction where, so it's Balm Road where it connects to Belle Isle Road, you've got an old bit of Woodhouse Hill Road on the other side, and then you've got Moor Road. You've got a traffic island on the Woodhouse Hill side. you've got a formal light crossing across Balham Road, and then you get to the Moor Road bit, and across that, there's nothing at all across the entire stretch of Moor Road. So I've asked highways officers to do a survey. They've said they know that's a problem junction. I've asked them to look at a formal controlled crossing point if possible. If not, it might be they come back with a zebra crossing suggestion. I think they're probably, if they're going to come back with anything, they'll come back with a traffic island solution, like on the opposite side, on the Woodhouse Hill side of that overall junction. But I agree with you entirely. Something needs to be done about that junction, because I try and cross it when I'm out and about in the ward, and it's an absolute complete nightmare. So we are on with that, and I should have a better idea of what they're suggesting by the end of November. Let me go back to the questions. I don't trust any vaccine which is being chipped to for mass control. I think the question of the vaccine is a difficult one. There's a lot of serious testing going on with a number of vaccines across the world. The UK government's invested in quite a few. The US government and actually major European governments and other governments around the world are all chipping in. Vaccines generally take years. There is always going to be a risk with vaccines that are brought through sooner, but I'm not a scientist, so I'll leave it to the scientists on that one. Let's have a look. At the back of Ebor Terrace, there's a public footpath. So the footpath, that bit should be maintained, and I will pick that up if it hasn't. It's the bit after the footpath, which isn't ours as a council, and then there's a very tiny sliver of the public highway, which is right next to the embankment wall. So again, as I said, Dylan, happy to have a meeting with residents about this and look to where we pick it up. So if you think that's something that's worthwhile, drop me a message and I can organise a chat with the residents, probably via Zoom or something like that, to address how we can get there. Can councillors put their heads together to get some online groups going? There are hardly any there. And do you know what? There is actually a lot going online in terms of community groups talking to each other, and I'm certainly more than happy to try and get some of that information out, or at least some of the Facebook channels and online channels on my Facebook where people can link into that. I think in terms of residential groups and things like that, I do know I'm working with your local residents association, Sarah, to try and get them back to doing some online meetings, and I have offered for them to use my Zoom account, etc., to help do that, to help facilitate that. But I think there is a general point about access to community groups while we're online in this situation, and that's something I'll take away and work with officers on to see if we can get some sort of comprehensive list I can get online so that people can maybe access some of those groups online. I think it's a very valid point in these challenging times. Is it true ITV are talking to develop a Winter of Island series on Leadstock? I have literally no idea whatsoever, and that is what? Okay, I'm going to dig into this one because that would be wow, that would be interesting. As a former resident of Leadstock for many years until about a year ago, and I was there for 13, 14 years. That would be weird. I will get back to you on that one because that's news to me. Yeah, I will try my best, Sarah, to get that information. I think anything we can do to promote togetherness in these challenging times are difficult. And if there's anyone listening, actually, I know there's a lot of virtual coffee mornings going on at the moment. Again, if you want us to share these as a council, bob me an email to my details below, and I will more than happily get our community officers in the Inside Community Committee to share these out. We know there's a huge amount of really good work going on online from a variety of organisations. So please don't hesitate to share. The council is more than happy to try and get this information shared out to as many people as possible, because we know mental health and well-being is a massive, massive issue at the moment. And anything we can do to try and alleviate some of that, even if it's virtually, we want to take advantage of. Yeah, again, Dylan, if you want to bob me a message, again, as I said, and we can pick this up, absolutely. I think there's a lot to be said on these things. Sarah, yes, there are lots from a lot of groups. As I've said, what I'll try and do is get you a list of stuff together for everyone, actually, and we'll try and get that information out. Right. I'm going to take that message down, Tanya. Something like that is obviously really, really personal. I would suggest, just for your own personal necessity, if you can delete that message and then send me a direct message, please, because I think something like that isn't. I'm going to delete the comment, actually, Tanya. If you want to send me a direct message about that, and I will pick it up separately for you, and we'll have a chat about that if that's okay. Right, there's 4 minutes left. Is there absolutely anything else anyone wants to ask me about absolutely anything? Make me earn my keep. So again, you've got another 4 minutes. Ask away. Otherwise, you'll be staring at me plant, and the poster of Yorkshire above, which is probably not the most exciting thing to stare at 6:30 on a Friday evening. So let's just have a look. See, actually, I haven't checked if I've got any questions via anything else today. WhatsApp question. Is it still free parking for NHS and key workers in Leeds City Centre? My understanding is it is still free parking, but I will double check and put on my Facebook. But my last check was it was still free if you have an NHS pass or are deemed as a key worker. I saw a picture of your dog online yesterday. I hope she's okay. Yes, Peggy is fine. She's my basset hound, and she is. She had a cherry eye operation yesterday, so she's feeling a bit sorry for herself. So thank you for that. Did you get the letter about the Clayton Guild? So not at the moment, because we're just clarifying some legal points. Just to kind of give an idea, for anyone that's watching that's in the Hunslet car area, that Clayton Ginnell is the Ginnell between Pepper Road and the Westburys. It's technically public highway, which is adopted by Leeds City Council. It's been used for motorbikes and quad bikes, particularly during summer, and there is a degree of criminality and antisocial behaviour. We as councillors want to close this off, or a section of it off, should I say, to stop the quad bikes getting through, and then put some hand railings in, do up the stairs, etc., and have a slightly different access point for pedestrians. But there's a legal issue, which is around when we remove the adoption of the public highway, that land is not registered to anyone. So all land in the UK is owned by someone. But in 1974, 1975, a lot went on, and land registry records disappeared for chunks of land that were adopted to city councils. So we don't know who owns it. Now, what will happen is if we do remove the adoption, and the court allows us to do that, the land has to be allocated effectively to someone. It can remain unregistered, but it will either default to the responsibility of adjacent domestic homeowners, aka the residents, or it will shift over to Network Rail. Now, our preference is that it shifts to Network Rail, because obviously it's next to a railway. They have an interest in it anyway in terms of maintenance access to the railway, and actually it means the residents don't end up being responsible for a piece of land in no man's land. We're having those conversations with Network Rail at the moment, so we're not sending out any letters until we've had those conversations with Network Rail to basically make sure that if we are to remove the adoption, that they would be happy to take over custodianship of the land once we close it off, rather than it default to 15, 20 residents. The entire process is ridiculously complicated legally. We're going through the legal process. It's not straightforward, Darryl. As soon as I get a proper answer, we'll get back to residents. We want to close off this antisocial behaviour issue. We want to close off the issue of the quad bikes in summer. Please just bear with us. These legal processes are never straightforward. Hi, Brenda. Let's have a look. Is it true? Please be transparent with us. If it is true, Josephine, I will find out, because I have literally no idea. This is the first I've heard about it. I will go out and find out, because from my perspective, we've negotiated around reducing the hours of the potential bar there, of the department site, which was the old casino. I'm just about to launch residents meetings there in hopefully 6 weeks. We're just negotiating with relevant parties, and hopefully we'll be having a Leeds Dock residents meeting in 6 weeks, which is the plan. this is the first I've heard about this. So certainly, if there is any intention of doing this, I'm not keen on it, let's put it that way, which means I will have something to say on it. So I'm really hoping it's not true. I think it would be intrusive. This is just my initial feeling, so please, I've got to look at details if it is true. If this is true, having that kind of activity at Leeds Dock, I do not believe is appropriate, and I will have my 2 pence about it, because I would not be happy on behalf of the residents I am elected to serve to have that type of activity in a residential area. I just don't think it's appropriate. But I don't know if the rumour is true or not. I will be sending emails off and I will be finding out. But if it is true, Channel 4 will be having a conversation with me, let me put it that way. Other than that, is there absolutely anything else anyone wants to ask me? Because it's 6:30 and I would like to get on with some paperwork and with my weekend. So last 10 seconds, any questions? Type now or forever hold your peace. No. So that's this week's, or this fortnight, I should say, Ask Your Councillor. I will be back in 2 weeks' time to take your questions. But as always, my contact details will be going across the bottom of this screen. You can email me, Facebook me, WhatsApp me, text me, call me, tweet me, whatever. If you've got a question, please get in touch. The sooner I know about problems, the sooner I can try and help fix them. Keep safe, keep well, and speak to you all again soon. Bye.